Alright, so what are we going to do in this video series? In this video series, I'm going to walk you through, or in fact, build a full-fledged real-life application in Flutter from scratch. This is the application which I also built using .NET Maui a few months back, and I posted the full source code of the application, .NET Maui application, and a YouTube tutorial series on the same on my YouTube channel. Now, for some of you who know me, I am not a hello world kind of a person. I do not want to start coding with basic projects or hello world or showing dialogues or transitioning these between pages. That is not me. In fact, you would be surprised when I tell you that the very first project I ever created in Flutter after following these installation instructions is the application which I am going to show you just now. So let me first of all show you the application which we are going to build. So this is a Tube Player application which I built in .NET Maui a couple of months back, 2 or 3 months back. So if I launch this application, basically it's an application where you can explore videos in YouTube. So I can go through list of, by default it is showing me some iPhone 14 videos. I can keep scrolling. At the moment I'm only showing 10 videos at a time, but the moment I move to the bottom, I tap into the infinite scrolling capability and then I show the next 10 videos and so on. Similarly, if you want to search for something, I can go back to the search bar and I can search for a specific video. Let me try, say, my name and see how it works. So you can search for something specific and then the videos come up. I can click on a particular video. It will show you the details about that video. Let this load up. It has some animations in the app. It shows you the title, the number of views, how many days ago it was posted, the channel name, number of subscribers, the tags which are there for this application or this video, similar videos related to this, some information. You can read comments which have been posted for this video. So you can see there are 36 comments for this video. You can play the video. I'll just start playing and then pause.
Hello everyone and welcome back. This is first of the
right. So you can start playing the videos. You can even download the video if you want. Let me just show it to you. So this is the video. If you want, you can just click on the download button over here, the download icon, and it will start downloading the video for you. So this is all the capabilities which you can do with this application. Now this is the same application that we will now build using Flutter. So for those of you who are coming from Xamarin or .NET Maui background, you can find the full source code, the Maui Tube Player, on my GitHub page. I will also provide a link to this GitHub repo in the description of this video. So here are some screenshots, some functionality in the application, and then finally a running video of the application in action. And if you want to learn step by step how we build this .NET Maui application, you can go and check out my 10-part series Beyond Monkeys, where I am building this real world Tube Player application using .NET Maui from scratch. So I have named it start to finish. The same thing I'm also going to do with Flutter. So the same application I'm going to take and I'm going to start building on or using Flutter. So once you have installed all the dependencies, all the prerequisites, which by the way are very few, very simple, you have a couple of options to develop Flutter applications. You can either use Android Studio or you can use Visual Studio Code. The choice is totally up to you. I tried both of them. Both of them work flawlessly. The only thing I would say, I prefer Visual Studio Code because it is very, very lightweight and better performing than Android Studio. So I'm more comfortable with Visual Studio Code or VS Code, but you can decide to go ahead with whichever IDE of your choice that you want to develop Flutter applications. So with this in mind, the first thing we need to do is we need to create a new Flutter application. So I'm just going to launch my Visual Studio Code. At the moment, there is nothing. I'm going to go to my command palette. You can do it by I think it is Control Shift P on Windows or Command Shift P on Mac, and then you can just type Flutter and choose new project. And then it will ask you, what do you want to do? Of course, we are going to build a Flutter application. So I'm going to choose application. Where I'm going to store this, I'm going to store this on my desktop. So select this folder to create this project in, and then let us give it a name. Let me call it tube_player. So this is the name of the application or the name of the project that I want to give. And then I'm going to press enter. It is going to go, and you can see at the bottom, it is running the Flutter create command to create an application for me. Let me close this main.dart file so as not to confuse you and show you the very, very basic structure of this project. So we have got some folders over here. Let me go through these folders: the Android, iOS, Linux, Mac OS, Web, and Windows. These are your platform specific folders. If you want to write platform specific code for any of these platforms or operating systems, just like in .NET Maui, under the platforms you have Tizen, you have Android, you have Mac, you have iOS, you have Windows. Similarly, you have all of these different targets that you can write platform specific code in. But for our purpose, we are only going to be working with this one folder, which is called the lib folder. At the moment, the lib folder only has one file, which is main.dart. But we are going to add more folders and more files into this as and when we move forward. The test folder you can ignore for now. If you want to write unit tests or integration tests for your application, you can write them under this folder. And then the other important file that we will come back to and we will look into and we'll keep on modifying is the pubspec.yaml file. Consider the pubspec.yaml file as the csproj file in your .NET Maui or Xamarin project. And the main.dart, you can consider this as a combination of your app.xaml.cs file and the main page.xaml.cs file. So before going any further, let me just run this application on iOS simulator and let us see this in action. So here you can see the application is launched. This application blank template is very much similar to what you see in a .NET Maui application when you first create an empty project. So you have a button at the bottom which is called plus. If you click on it, it just tells you you have pressed the button this many times. So you keep on pushing it, it keeps on incrementing. Exactly the same concept as you can see in a .NET Maui project application. So let me just stop this for now and let us go back to our project, and then let's see what do we have in the pubspec.yaml. And this is an important file, and one of the things that we will also be doing, we will be doing some cleanup in this file as well. There are a lot of comments over here at the moment. Just to keep it simple, I'm going to remove them so that it is easy to read. But of course, if you want, you can leave them in. You can read it on in your own spare time. Okay, so let's clean up a bit and then I'll explain what do we have over here. All right. So this is nothing but the name of your project, some description of your project, and then this is the current version. Automatically it will be implemented. It will be incremented. The publish to right now is defaulted to none. If you change it to publish, then it is going to publish it to pub.dev, which is an equivalent or a NuGet equivalent in Flutter world. So you can build a library and you can publish it to pub.dev so that other people can also benefit from what you have done. These are the dependencies, and this is the place where we are going to add additional packages if you want to utilize them. For example, in .NET or Maui or Xamarin world, you go to NuGet and you add package. So this is where we are going to add packages over here. So one of the package, the SDK package, which is the Flutter package, which is added by default. Similarly, they have added the Cupertino icons, which you can use in your applications. And as we progress, you will see we'll be adding more and more packages. For example, one package to fetch data from the internet. We will use one package to use or provide cached images in our application, and so on. And these are some similar things. These are some packages which are used only during the development purposes. So you saw there is a test folder. So you can create tests and you can execute tests while in the development environment using this Flutter test package. And then we have something called Flutter lints. These are your code analysis rules. You will see when I start coding, as in when you type, it will automatically fix the indentation, formatting, and if there are any violations in code, for example, you are assuming you are saying that you should always be using camel casing, and then suddenly you start using Pascal casing, which is the uppercase, lowercase combinations, or maybe uppercase as the first character of your variable name, it will warn you. So these are all the different rules which are defined in Flutter lints using the Flutter lints package, and the options, what all you want to enable or disable, are defined in the analysis options.yaml. And then below that, right now, I'm just going to leave this as such commented out, but this is where you can specify. In the Maui world, you have the Maui images, you have the Maui fonts. So this is where exactly you can specify where my fonts and my images are going to come from. In fact, let us do something. I can simply go and I can create a new folder, and this time I'm going to create this outside of my lib folder. So I'm going to call it assets. So under assets, I'm going to create a new folder. No, click on asset. No, something is wrong. Move to trash. It is not allowing me to create a new folder. So assets/fonts. Let me delete. Nope. Yeah, okay. Maybe I pressed the wrong file earlier, wrong icon. So you go under Tube Player and you create a new folder called assets. Under that, I'm going to create a folder called fonts, and under that, I'm going to create a folder called images. So you can see over here, I have got two folders, assets and fonts. Now, in order for me to make use of these fonts or these images, all I need to do, I just need to come over here and I need to uncomment these lines. So let me uncomment this. So I'm going to say my assets and my images are coming from the folder which is assets/images. I can provide a specific file that I want to work with, or I can just leave it like this, assets/images. So this is going to take all the images and convert them into assets or Maui images equivalent, which I can use in my application. So let me actually go ahead and add some. Let me copy paste some images. So I have got these three images, the error image and play image and YouTube placeholder image. I'm going to just copy it, or I can in fact drag and drop. Okay, drag and drop is not working. Copy images. Okay, my OS is not behaving well for me. So let me do it this way. And then for the fonts, I am using two fonts, Fira Sans Light and Fira Sans Medium. So I can bring it under the fonts folder. So these are some fonts and images that I have included in my project. The moment I have said this, which is assets, and I have uncommented this line and said assets/images, now I can simply go and use this error.png, or if I open this up, this is the error.png. If I open the YouTube placeholder, this is the icon. I can use all of these icons or all of these images in my application. Now to use a font, all I need to do is, let me just go ahead and let me uncomment one of the sets. And the other one I can remove. So here I need to give it a name. I need to provide a name. Maybe I can give it a name regular font. And what is the file that we are going to use for the regular font? Rename. Let me copy paste. So I'm going to say the font is in assets/fonts, and the name of the font is Fira Sans Light. I can remove this one, and then I need to add the second font as well. So let me copy the same thing and let me paste it over here again, and I can call it a medium font. And this time around I will change it from light to medium. So automatically now I have access to these two fonts, and this first font I will refer with the name regular font, and this second font I will refer with the name medium font. Very similar to what you are doing in your Maui program.cs file where you register your fonts. So the moment you save this now, it is going to run the flutter pub get command, and it is going to make all of these available for you in your application. Okay, now the other thing that we are going to do, I actually come from a very strong MVVM background, and also regardless of MVVM, I also want to make my application or my project in well-maintained and easy to read and easy to understand format. So I always rely on proper structuring in my applications and projects. So here what I'm going to do, I'm going to create some folders over here. So I come from the MVVM background, so I'm going to create new folder. I'm going to call it models. So there is one folder I'm going to create as models. There is another folder I'm going to create view models. Another one which is of course views. I will also create one folder for view controls. So view controls are usually the ones that you that I use for putting reusable controls or components within the application. And maybe another one I can create is let's say services. This is where we will write all our services. Now, one of the important things to note over here, though it is not absolutely mandatory, Flutter relies on Dart as the programming language. Dart is very, very similar to C#, both in nature as well as in syntax. I found it to be 90% similar to C# in most of the cases. Of course, being a different language, there are minor, small differences here or there, but that is fine, that is to be expected. But majority of the cases you will find it will be a 90-95% match to your C#. The way you are doing things in C#, the same code actually you can copy paste and you can run it in Dart with or without any minor modifications. So one of the things that Dart, I believe, has some roots or some background with Java, I assume so. So they are using camel casing. That is what you will see. So the camel casing, I mean, if you want to declare a variable, so rather than saying, or if you want to declare a property, let's say in .NET world, you will say public int student age, right? So this is how you will write a property. In here, you will write the property with camel casing. So it will be student age. So the first letter is, or the first character is small. Again, this is not compulsory. It is totally up to you. But if you are writing Flutter application, eventually what is going to happen, you will maybe need some help from some other Flutter developers, you may post your code publicly on the internet for others to see. And if you are breaking the patterns, or if you are doing things in a totally different way which people do not understand, it is going to make it difficult for them to understand or learn from your code. So whichever programming language you are using, best way is to follow the instructions in or the nomenclature of that platform or framework or SDK or programming language. So I'm also going to rely on the same camel casing everywhere. That's why you see I named my folders as models with a small m, services with a small s, view controls with small, and so on. Now the other important thing that we have is we have got this main.dart file. Again, do not be overwhelmed right now. We are going to make it very, very simple for you. For the time being, let me just remove all these unnecessary comments for you so that it makes it easier for you to read. I'm just going to remove everything. There are a lot of comments. Basically, these are instructions to help you get started very quickly. Okay, so just have a look at this simple main.dart file. As I said in the beginning, this main.dart file is your combination of app.xaml.cs as well as the main page.xaml.cs file, or appshell.cs file if you prefer to use appshell in Maui or Xamarin applications. So what do we have over here? So at the very top, we have simply something called a main function. This is your, I think, the startup or the app.xaml.cs, the application constructor, where you are just saying run an application which is called my app, and this my app application is defined over here. So this is the my app application, and what it is doing, it is simply returning a material application. This is as good as saying that it is extending from material application with the title Flutter demo, and the theme is primary color is blue color, and it is returning a home page or my home page class or a page or a widget with the title Flutter demo home page. And this my home page is again another widget. I will explain what widgets are, where we are simply, same thing, increment counter. We are incrementing the counter. We define the initial counter as 0. We keep on incrementing it whenever a button is pressed. So we are using a scaffold for the page where we have an application bar with the title, which is defined over here. When we pass this home page, we passed it the title. So this is the title which is displayed. And then we are using a column. I'll explain all of those in a bit. And inside this column, or a sequence of rows, let me call it that way, we are displaying a text, and with a static text saying you have pushed the button this many times, and then it is displaying the number of the counter clicks. And then we have a floating action button. When you click, it is going to call this increment counter function which we have defined over here. So this is all there is right now. As I said, do not worry, we are going to simplify this a lot. But before I start doing that, I am going to do some further housekeeping in my application. So for those of you who have watched my Maui Tube Player video series, or even inspected the code, you would realize that the majority of the code that I have written over there, at least on the backend side or the C# side, exactly translates one-to-one, maybe with a small or minor variations here or there. So the very first thing I need to do is, if you remember or if you recall from that video series, I created a constants class where I declared some variables that I want to use throughout my application. So that I don't have to declare them in multiple places. So for that, under the lib folder, I'm going to create a new file, and this file I'm going to call it app_constants .dart. So this is a language or a Dart language file. So I'm going to create a class called constants. So one thing that you will notice, there is no public or private over here. There is no concept of that. The way you declare something as public is, or rather you declare something as private, as if you just put an underscore before the start of the name. The moment you say underscore before any class or any variable name, that becomes private by default. Anything which is not starting with an underscore, that is public in nature. So this is a constants class I'm going to create, and here what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the same thing which I did in my .NET Maui version, wherein I have, so there is a static constants. This is giving me an error. Yeah. Okay. So I have a constant string called application name, constant string email address, constant string API service URL, and when I go to the YouTube version 3 data APIs, you will see that this is the endpoint that we should be calling every time with some specific resources such as video details or channels or search, etc. But this is the common URL for all of them. And then you will also need an API key. So I'm not going to provide or type in my API key over here. Unfortunately, last time I used my API key in the video series, and then I think everyone was using the same API key, and then that API key got locked and the account was disabled. So this time around, I will do it in the background. Once I close this file, I will go and I'll update the value in this API key variable. So this is the app constants that we are going to create. The other file which I'm going to create is my application styles. Now this application styles is your basically coming from the app.xaml file. So if you remember in Xamarin or Maui applications, you have app.xaml file, wherein you can define your colors, your fonts, your grid view or collection view styles, your button styles, all of these things. Now Flutter is not markup based language. It is not XAML or HTML or XML based language. It is purely a programming based language based on Dart. So the whole UI you have to create using Dart language itself. This is very similar to creating a Xamarin or a .NET Maui application using C# only, no XAML. So they are using the same concept as that of MVU, which is model view update concept. So the same thing applies in Flutter as well. So to define application styles, you also have to create the application styles in code. So I'm going to go and add a new file over here, and I'm going to call it appstyles.dart file. So appstyles.dart, and this is where I'm going to define, say, my colors or my text styles, etc. So let me start with some colors. I'll say constant color, and let me bring in, okay, the namespace is already added, that's fine. Let's call it page background color, and this is going to be a color, I can say 0xFF for full opacity, and I can give it page background color of 262626 RGB. So let me do a control dot on this and then import my material dot package so that it resolves all the dependencies. So this is the page background color. In app.xaml, you would have written it something like this: color x key equals to page background color, and then inside you would have said something like this, hash 262626. So the same thing that you are doing in XAML or .env, I'm doing it over here like this. So I'm just declaring a color, and for styles, Flutter or Dart recommends that you use K for these, so that it is easy to distinguish. Now I'm not going to write down everything. I'm just going to copy paste some of the colors that I'm going to use in my application. So I'm going to use page background color, which is hash 262626, dark color, which is 2F2F2F, and light color, which is F5F5F5, dark text color, light text color, light border color, and card fill color. These are the different colors that I'm going to use. All right, so let's save this one. In fact, one of the things that we will also do over here is we will also define some text styles. So these are the styles that usually these are the label styles that you will apply or you will define in your app.xaml file. So and then you can use it. For example, I can say I can declare const text style, and I can call it K regular light text, light text, say size 12, and this is a new text style. By the way you define, you can even earlier Dart also used the new keyword, but now they are saying that this is deprecated, so you do not need to specify new. The moment you refer to a class with the brackets, the new is automatically implied. So I'm going to declare a text style, and in this text style I'm going to say that my font family is, let's say, my regular font. All right, what else do we have? Maybe we want to give it a color. So the color I want to give is K light text color. All right, and maybe a font size I want to specify a font size of, say, 12. So this is how I'm defining my style. I'm calling it K regular light text 12, and this is using regular font, light text color as a text color, and the font size of 12. Now with this, let us go and create our first proper page. So let me go into the views folder, and I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to create a start page. So let me create a start page.dart file. So this is where I'm going to have the starting page, which when the application runs is going to be displayed. So to create this, I can use a stateless widget. I can use some shortcuts. I'm going to call this as my start page. On this note, since I'm using VS Code, one of the things that you will also need to do, if you click on the extensions, there are a few extensions that you would need to install. One for sure you need to install is Flutter. The moment you install the Flutter application, it is also going to install Dart extension for you. So Flutter plugin is going to install the Dart plugin, and then I'm using this awesome Flutter snippets. I highly recommend that you install these, because what they do, they allow you to, they are basically shortcuts which allow you to do a lot of these things automatically for you. So you don't have to type, just like in C#, if you type CTOR and tab out, it will automatically create a constructor. Similarly, over here you saw the moment I wrote STLess, it automatically created a stateless widget class for me. All I need to do is I need to define the name of this class. So this is a simple class, and it also added all the, let's correct this to material. It will add all the imports or the using statements. So these imports are nothing but the using statements that you see in your C#. So what is this widget? Basically, Flutter, just remember one thing. Flutter is all about widgets. everything is a widget. Your application itself is a widget. Your page is a widget. Your custom control is a widget. Your third-party component, UI component that you bring in, that is a widget. Everything in Flutter is a widget. And there are just two types of widgets in Flutter. One is a stateless widget and the other is a stateful widget. The difference between the two is in the stateless widget, you cannot update the state. Once you have defined something, once you have put something, let's say you have a label and you have said that your label value is XYZ, you cannot change that label value on certain event. As an example, you saw when we ran this application, every time we were clicking on that plus icon. In fact, let me go back over here. See, every time I'm clicking, it is updating this label over here with a new value. In a stateless widget, you cannot do that. You can only do that in stateful widget, where you can manipulate the state of the widget itself. So the widget is the basic building block in Flutter. Everything is a widget. So right now you can see this is a widget. It has a constructor. You can leave this constructor or you can remove it. It's up to you, because right now we are not doing anything with this constructor. In fact, let me remove this altogether. And what it is doing, it is simply, it has just one function inside, which is an override of build, which returns a widget and it takes a context, and currently it is just returning a container, which is an empty box. It is not doing anything. Let me change that. So what I'm going to do, instead of returning a container, let me just say that I'm going to return a scaffold. Okay, and you can see scaffold basically is a layout for a page which can have multiple items. The two most important things which are of importance to us is this app bar, the application bar at the top, and the body, the actual body of the page. Of course, then you have a lot of other things. For example, you can add floating action button, or you can also specify the location of that. You can have the drawer, you can have the bottom navigation bar, background color, and so on. There are a lot of other properties which are available for us. So for me right now, what I am interested in to start with is just my background color, and this background color I want to give it K page background color, the one that I defined. Okay, and you can see at the moment it is complaining that the moment I did it, automatically imported this, and it is, let me save this. So this is where the rules or the editor comes in. You see, I have just return scaffold background color colon K page background color, and then after that I have put a colon. Let me just simply go ahead, press Ctrl S or Command S, save it, and you will see it will automatically indent out everything properly for me. So I'm going to give it a background color. I'm going to define an application bar. So again, the way you define an application bar is an application bar. In the application bar, I'm going to say my background color is, say, colors.transparent. I want my application bar to be transparent. I want to center the title. I want to have no elevation for my app bar, and my title is going to be a text, and this text is going to be Tube Player, and the style of this, so the style that I'm going to use for this is some style that I have defined over here. So let me actually bring in some styles, and then we can make use of those. So I'm going to replace this text style with a few text styles which I have defined. So I have the K regular light text 12 using the regular font size. Then I have medium light text, again where I'm using medium font but light text color. And then I have Okay, right now I only have light, and then I have the K page header text style. So this is the one we are going to use for our page header. So I can say K page header text style. So this is our app bar. And then the next thing I'm going to do, in addition to the app bar, we are going to have a body, of course. And this is where we are going to show something. Maybe I want to put in a text called, say, start page, content will go here, blah, blah, blah. And maybe I want to give it a style. So let's give it K medium light 18 text style. So right now it is complaining that since I'm using a constant text over here, ideally I should be using the const modifier over here. So I should be defining it with const. So I can add the const so that this error goes away. If you want this to be ignored altogether, there is a simple way. You can go to your project file, and in your analysis options.yaml, you can include this option, and then it will not complain about this at all. So the way you do this is, oh sorry, let me undo this. No. So I'm going to undo this, and if I go over here, quick fix, it's going to tell me that I can ignore this file. So ignore for file. I can add this line over here, and then it is not going to complain at all. Or if I go to my analysis options, I can specify it over here, and then it is going to ignore as well. So yeah, coming back to our start page. So this is a simple page that we have created so far. It is a page which just has an application bar, and it has a body with text in it. That's it. In fact, I can also, in my application bar, I can also add an icon. Let me add an icon. So I can say leading, and I can specify it to be icon and icons dot say menu. Yeah, so I can define it with icons dot menu. A simple page, a simple start page that I have created. Now with this, let us go back to our main.dart and let's clean up something. First of all, we do not need this main homepage at all. I can get rid of the main homepage, and I am simply left with this main function where I am running the application, my app, and this is my app. And in this, all I need to do is I need to maybe change this title to Tube Player. Let's put Tube Player. This is the application title. And the theme I'm going to use, let's simplify this. I'm going to use dark theme. So I'll say theme data.dark. And then the home page that we have is our start page. So this is our start page that we created. And you notice the moment I add start page, it imported this file start page from here. So now it is looking much simpler for me. So let me actually go ahead and run this now. So let me run this in iOS simulator. Let's make it smaller so you can see it is launching. It is actually compiling this, doing an Xcode build in the background, and it is going to launch the application. Yeah. So now the application is running. It is launching, and here you go. You can see the theme or the layout, the fonts, everything has changed. We defined an app bar with a menu icon. If I go back to my start page, you can see this was the app bar that we defined with the title Tube Player, and the style is K page header style. Let me actually do something and show you, because Flutter has true hot reload and hot restart, something that .NET Maui is still struggling with. So, and this is where I can make changes. So instead of saying Tube Player, let me just type S at the end and let me save it. You see, immediately it gets reflected over here. I can save this. Maybe this text, I think K medium light, medium is too much. Perhaps I should use K regular light text with the size 16. Save this, and you can see it is coming over here. Okay, I'll come to this. One of the things you will notice, it is showing you this debug flag that currently I'm running this application in debug mode. So let me go back to my main.dart, and what I'm going to do in my material app, the very first thing I'm going to say is disable debug show rainbow mode banner is false. So let me save this, and now at least this annoying debug flag is gone. So right now you can see the start page content will come here, is showing up at the top left. Obviously this is how it is. So what I can do is I can actually go ahead and I can make it centered. So let me just say wrap with center, and all it is doing so this is as good as saying in .NET Maui that in your text you are saying horizontal options is center and vertical options is center. All I have done is I've just wrapped it with center, and let me just save it and see what happens. The moment I save, it goes over here in the center. So this is how easy it is to build this application. Now, one of the things that you might be doing, though I'm running this on iOS, so it is not, it does not matter over here, because in iOS the status bar in iOS is always transparent. But in Android, if some of you decide to run this in Android, you will notice that the status bar at the top is going to come with the slightly different accent color. To fix that, all you need to do in your main.dart file, you just need to add, let me bring in the libraries. All you need to do is just say system.chrome.set system UI overlay style, and then give it a style where you say that my status bar color is transparent and my status bar icon brightness is dark. So on Android, it will also look exactly the same, and this status bar will become transparent. So let me stop this for now. Okay, so let us start doing something practical for now. Let me start building this start page.xaml.dart file. Okay, so currently we have got a text over here which is simply displaying start page content will show here. Let me actually run this. So while it is running, we can make live changes to this. Now, one of the things you will notice, I created a folder over here called view controls. This is where I said I'll be putting some reusable controls. If you follow this particular tutorial in .NET Maui, or if you look at the code, you will notice every time when I'm loading a page, I'm showing a nice indicator, a UI indicator, a spinning arrow that something is loading up, or if there is an error, it will show up with an error image and the actual description of the error. So let's actually go ahead and let's start building that. Let me close some of the unnecessary files. Even main.dart we do not need, we only need to work with start page.dart file. So let us try to build that reusable control, which is for the error indicator. But before I build it as a reusable control, let me do it over here and show you how it looks like. So instead of text, I'm not going to have a text over here. Instead, I'm going to build a column. So column is, you can consider column as a top-down set of rows. So one row on top of the other. So you have a column, and this column actually has a property called children. So you can define different children for this column. So I have a column called, I have multiple children, and what am I going to put as my children in this column? So I can put it, let us say I put in an image. So I can say image dot asset. So the image is going to come from my assets. And what is the image? You remember we put it over here, assets slash images slash error dot png. So I'm going to specify this over here, assets slash images slash error dot png. So let me save this, and you see automatically this image has started appearing over here. Okay, what if I want to give it a different size? What if I want to make it bigger or smaller? I can actually wrap this image, I can wrap this in a sized box. So it is put over here, and then I can specify, let me put the width and height of say 64. So I'll give it a width of 64 and a height of 64. Let me save. It is the same as of now. Let's try to make it 128. Apparently, I think I may need to hot restart it. So I'm giving it an image. What is the second thing I want to put? So the second thing I want to put is a text. So maybe I want to put right, and I'm going to use the style for this as K medium light text 18. So you can see it is now showing over here, but they are very, very close. I want to give some spacing in between, so I can simply do another sized box over here. And this time around I can say the height is maybe 32. I want to separate it by 32 pixels. So you can see it is separated by 32 pixels. Now after this I can add another text box, and here I can say some text which is some error message will appear here. Please contact support team, and some other long text message. Right. So you see over here, so this text is displayed over here. Excuse me. The very first thing I want to do is I want to style it. So I want to give it a style of, I have to do this after this, and my style is equal to K light or K regular light text 14. Let's save this. And again I need to put in some space in between, so I can put in a size box and put a height of 12 pixels over here. So Control S, save. So it is displaying this over here. But one of the things you notice that it is not, first of all, it is going to the edges. I want it to be within the bounds, within certain bounds. Maybe I want to apply some padding to this. So the way we can apply the padding is on my this whole body itself. Let's say in the center, I can go ahead and I can say wrap with the padding widget, and then I can specify the padding. So I can say pad it with maybe 36 pixels on all sides. So you can see right now it is padded with 36 pixels. One thing that you notice, this text is not centered. So we can center this text over here as well. We can say, we can come to this and we can say text align is equal to text align dot center. And let me save this, and now everything is looking centered over here. Now one of the things you will notice, it is not itself coming in center because by default column takes up the whole width, the whole height of the screen. So the reason it is happening is because the column is taking up the whole height of the screen. So to fix this, the way we should do this is, in the column I need to specify that the main axis size is the minimum size that it needs. So if I just say that it needs the minimum size required to fit this area or this content, and now if I save, now it is going to be centered on the screen properly. Maybe this 32 is a lot. Perhaps we can reduce it to 24. Yes, 24 looks a bit better. So this is how we have declared, or we have defined this control or the body of this page. But I want this to be a reusable control. So this whole thing, I want it to be reusable, this error indicator. So for that, let me do something. I can go over here, click on this balloon, and I can say extract it as a widget. So the moment I say extract it as a widget, I can give it a name. I can call it error indicator. So you can see now what it has done in the body. It has just created a new instance of this error indicator widget, which is nothing but another stateless widget which it has created. Remember, I was telling you everything is a widget in Flutter world. So this it has created and it has put it at the bottom. Ideally it should be going into its own class. So let me actually cut it out. So we can remove this and we can go to view controls and we can create a new file. I can call it error underscore indicator dot file, and this is where I can go ahead and I can put it. And of course it is complaining that it does not have the references. So let me bring in material light. It is complaining that it does not know about this. So I'm going to import my app styles. Anything else? No, that is good. And now this is complaining, this start page is complaining that I do not know where error indicator is. So I can press on control dot and I can say, you know what, it is defined in this, so import that library. Now once I run this, even if I restart the whole application, you see it is coming in properly. If I replace this error indicator with something else, that will appear. Now one of the issues that we see over here at the moment is that this text that you see is hard coded. This is not the text that should be defined. Ideally that text should be coming from the calling pages. So what we can do for that, we can go over here and we can declare it over here. So I can go ahead, in fact I can remove this constructor. I do not need this constructor. I can go and I can say final. So final is another keyword in Dart which specifies that once a value has been assigned to this variable, it cannot be changed at all. So you can see I'm declaring final string error text, and final means that once I've defined some value, I cannot change it. For example, the moment I say error text is equal to 123, I cannot go and change it to 345. If I want to keep changing it, then I should remove this word final. But in our case, we will not be changing, we will not be mutating. That's why we will specify it as final, so it cannot be changed. Now one thing it is still complaining over here is, since it is final, and another issue final is once it is defined, it cannot be changed. So it is complaining that it does not have a value. It must be initialized. Why it is complaining it must be initialized? Dart is a null safe language. Unlike C#, where you declare a string and that string can be null or can have a value, you can declare a class variable, a certain class variable. Let's say you have a class employee, and then you can say employee emp, that's it, and you don't declare anything, and then you can simply check if it is null or not. In Dart, it is a null safe language, which means you have to specify whether you want to allow nulls or you don't want to allow nulls. So in this particular case, since we are not allowing nulls, you cannot assign a null value to this. You cannot say that string error text is equal to null. That is not allowed. If you want it to be nullable, then you have to add a question mark, and now you can say that my error text is null, or you can even leave it empty. But this other thing it is complaining is that it must be initialized. So how can we initialize? So there are different ways. Either I can go and I can initialize it with something, let's say is equal to some value. Okay, either I can do it this way, but we do not know what this value is. That ideally should be coming in from the constructor. So I can go and I can create a constructor for this. So I can say error indicator, create a constructor, and I can ignore this, and I'm saying this is a required field, error.text. And once I have this error.text, instead of hard-coded value over here, let me actually cut this thing out, and I'm going to just say error text. I can just replace it with this variable over here. And let me save this. Now if I go back, you will notice this thing is complaining that it is expecting error text which is required. So I can pass in the error text, and this is where I can put in my message, and I can save this, and it is running. If I change it to another important error message, let's say, if I save this, you see it is dynamically changing. So now I have made this error indicator fully dynamic. So whatever is coming from our view model in future, once we are doing a search or we are loading videos, if there is an error, we are going to tap into that error, and that error we are going to pass in, which this control will be responsible for showing. So basically it is very, so what I'm trying to say, I've made it fully modular. Now the same thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a loading indicator in a very, very similar fashion. So let's create a loading indicator. So same concept I can do. Let me actually stop this, and I will do it in a different way this time. So okay, this is complaining, that is fine. Let's leave it over here. Let's come over here in the view controls. Let me create a new file called loading_indicator, and the reason I'm doing it, just to show you the different ways it can be done. One way, I created it over there, extracted it, put it into a new file. This time around, I'm creating it afresh, and then I'm going to use that in that particular page. So let me create a stateless widget. So this stateless widget is going to be called loading indicator. So loading indicator, I do not need the constructor. So what are we going to have? So maybe one of the things is we want to show some text or the action which we are doing. Let's say if you are reading or you're searching for YouTube videos on the internet, it is going to take times, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 5 seconds, depending on your internet connection. So you may want to put in a message saying, hey, wait, we are loading, or we are searching for your favorite videos. Or maybe you are going and checking the weather. So maybe you want to show a spinning bar and display a text below that saying, we are getting the weather near you, something like that. So in this particular case, I'm going to call it loading text. Same concept. And since it is a final string, it must be initialized. I'm going to create a constructor for this. I do not need the super key. I can ignore this. So now this error is gone. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create again a center column. So I'm going to create a center, and inside the center I'm going to create a column, and in the column I'm going to have my children, Why is it not accepting? Return center, child is column. Okay, let's start with column, and the column will have some children. Okay, and I'm going to wrap this in center. Save this. So I have within center, and same thing I will do. Maybe I will do a padding for this. I will go ahead and I will pad this with maybe 36 pixels is what we did in the previous one. And for my column, I'm going to specify that my axis size, main axis size is minimum, so that it can take up all the space it needs. And then what do we have in the columns? So maybe the first thing that I need to do is I need to put in, let's do something sized box with a width of, I don't know, 34 or 32 and a width of 32, and the child we are going to put for this is a circular progress indicator. Okay, so let me save this, and I'm going to go over there, and I should have called this loading indicator. I'm going to go to my start page, and here I'm going to call my loading indicator, and since it does not know what is my loading indicator, I'm going to include this. And now let me run the application. There are errors. Loading text is required, so it is expecting a loading text. That's why it's giving an error. So this loading text can be, hello, we are getting weather for you. So let me run this now. So here you go. You can see it is now showing you a nice spinning indicator. So let us go back to our loading indicator and let's add some more content to it. So perhaps the next thing I need to do is, after this I need to put in a text. So I can say text, and this time around the text will be my loading text, and the style will be K regular light text 14 we can use. So here you go. Hello, we are getting weather for you, and perhaps I can give it some space in between, so I can use sized box. And the height I can give it 32 perhaps. So now save. So now there is some space over here which is coming up. If this is too small, we can make it perhaps bigger. Yeah, this 16 seems good. And same thing we can do if I go back over here. This will take a time or some time. Let me show it to you. If I save this, you see it is again not centered. So I can do the same thing. I can specify my text alignment to be text alignment dot center. Now this is looking good. Now something additional I want to show you over here is, currently we are using the built-in widget in Flutter to show this progress indicator. This is equivalent to your activity indicator on Maui. We can use a circular progress indicator, or we can use a Cupertino progress indicator, which is the iOS version of it. So Cupertino activity indicator. This is the iOS version. Again, Depending on the platform that we are running on, we can specify, because this is all Dart code equivalent to C#, you can use the ternary operator saying if the platform is iOS, then show Cupertino activity indicator, otherwise show circular progress indicator. We can do whatever we want. Another thing I want to do, just to show you the power of widgets, because we are not just tied up to the widgets which are provided out of the box in Flutter. And by the way, we have lot of them. We have around, if I recall correctly, either, I don't know, 300 plus or 600 plus widgets out of the box in Flutter. That's a lot, but still you can go and you can bring in additional components as well, or additional widgets. So you can navigate to pub.dev. Pub.dev is like your NuGet.org, where you can search for any packages. In this particular case, I'm going to look for a package called SpinKit. It's a Flutter SpinKit package, and it has a popularity of 100%. If I go inside, it will tell me you can see how you can add it, how you can import it, how to use some examples. And then these are the different kind of animations. You can see we can have different kind of animations. Whichever one that you like for your project, you can use that. I think I like this cube grid, so I'm going to use this cube grid. So how do we make use of this? So we can come over here and we can, just next to this name, either we can click on this copy, or we can go to the installing and we can copy this code over here. By the way, when we hover over it and when we click, it is copying the same thing for us. So once this is done, I can go back to my pubspec.yaml. This is the manual way of adding any dependencies. So under the dependencies, I can go and I can add Flutter SpinKit, and then I can save it, and you can see it is getting the package for me. And now it has extracted the package. Let me put everything in one line. This is one way. Or another way to add a package is, if you go to the extensions, you notice that I added a new extension called PubSpec Assist. The advantage with PubSpec Assist is I don't need to do all of this manually. I can actually do a Command Shift P to bring in the VS Code palette, and I can say PubSpec, and then it can say add update dependencies. So I can type and then I can search for something. So I can say SpinKit, press enter, and then it is going to search, and you see it is going to add this automatically for me. If I go back to my, not the log file, if I go back to my pubspec.yaml, since it was already there, it did not do anything. If it was a newer version, it would have updated the version over here. So by the way, what this version is saying is that use current version is 5.1.0. So use any version as long as this first character is 5. The moment it becomes version 6, don't do. So basically it will automatically keep on upgrading from 5.9.9, but it will never upgrade to 6.0.0. And what I have understood of Flutter so far is that there is some sort of assurance from the community or some guidelines from Flutter itself that whenever there is a breaking change, you have to update the major version. Or even if within minor versions, if you are making changes, then when you specify the procedure, or you put this, where is my hat file? Let's copy this. Yeah, so I can put this over here. So in this case, it will go from 5.1.0, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 up to 1.9. It will never go to 5.2. So this is some sort of understanding that they have. So this is one way you can add packages. I prefer to do it manually because it is not too much of a hassle. So once I have done this, instead of this SpinKit, the circular progress, I can actually remove this whole thing, and now I can say I can bring in SpinKit cube grid I wanted, and this would automatically add this spin kit Flutter for me. These are unused packages, we can remove them. And what do we specify in this spin kit? We can specify the color that we want for this, maybe light color for this, and we want the size to be 32. Now if I run the project again, let me minimize this. Yeah, so now you can see it is showing a much nicer animated icon or a loading indicator rather than a spinning circle that we saw earlier. So that's it for part 1. Stay tuned. In part 2, we will start developing on the YouTube APIs. We will fetch the data using YouTube APIs and display it on our screens. By the way, if you like this video and you want to see more and more, please consider subscribing to this channel. I'll be posting videos on Flutter building practical applications on regular basis. See you all.